From the beginning, our plan was to set up the trailer at Goliad State Park and spend one night at Presidio la Bahia and another night at the park. It's not every day that you get to spend a night in a Spanish colonial fort, and we jumped at the opportunity. Our first order of business, though, after we got to Goliad, was to get the trailer set up at the park and grab a bite in downtown Goliad. After lunch, we ducked into the Chamber of Commerce to find out what interesting things we could find in Goliad itself. The Markethouse Museum was open, so we set off to see what they had to see. The museum occupies the former Goliad Fire Department, and it contains artifacts relevant to the history of the town. This isn't one of those glass case, look but don't touch museums. The staff of the museum encourages all of its visitors to handle almost all of the exhibits. It could have been a rather dull visit, but we got to turn all the handles and test weights and stuff. We really recommend spending an hour or so in this museum, especially if you have kids. The event that the Presidio is most known for, and the reason that it's rumored to be haunted, is the Goliad Massacre. When the Texan troops under James Fannin were captured during the Battle of Colorado Creek, they expected to be extradited to New Orleans, which was already part of the U.S. at that time. Instead, the wounded were executed in the courtyard within the fort, and the healthy were marched a short distance away to be executed.
So this weekend our adventures take us to Goliad, Texas, and we're going to spend the first night in an old Spanish colonial fort called Presidio la Bahia.
We go from the Markethouse Museum to the Presidio la Bahia exhibits, which are mostly behind glass. The artifacts are a little more rare, but no less interesting. It tells the story of the fort, the Battle of Colorado Creek, the Goliad Massacre, and the Angel of Goliad. There's more than just the Presidio here. This is also the location of the birthplace of General Ignazio Zaragoza, and I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that pronunciation, but he's the general that led the Mexican forces at the Battle of Puebla against the French forces in an event that has later been linked to Cinco de Mayo. In several places in the area around Goliad, you'll see references to the Angel of Goliad. There's some disagreement about her name, but most sources call her Francita Alaves and say that her husband was an officer in the Mexican army. She was credited with saving dozens of Texan soldiers by interceding on their behalf during the massacre.
So Dean is outside playing with his drone for the first time ever. He's never had an opportunity to fly his drone that wasn't on our property. So he's having a good time right now. But I'm going to show you the interior of the Presidio la Bahia and what it looks like after hours when everyone's gone home. Because if you rent the quarters for the night, you get the run of the Presidio. So I'm going to be squinting a little bit because the sun's going down right over there. But you get this awesome view of the highway. But it actually is a pretty good view down toward the San Antonio River. And this is one of the oldest churches in continuous operation in the U.S. And it's the oldest continually operated church west of the Mississippi. But it's been in continual use since the Presidio was moved here along with Mission Espiritu Santo. I think that happened in 1749. I think that's what I remember them saying. Here is the main courtyard of the Presidio. This isn't the first time that we spent the night at Presidio la Bahia. We spent the night here about 20 years ago with some friends. The Presidio has a reputation for being haunted, and it got a little freaky that night, and our friends freaked out to the point where we all ended up sleeping in the car because they couldn't stop freaking out and nobody could sleep. But if we see any ghosts, we'll be sure and say something. Now, the southern wall of the Presidio is the shortest wall in the Presidio, and some of the local residents like to jump the wall in the middle of the night and come bang on the doors, particularly the doors to the officers' quarters where people sleep. So sometimes that freaks people out a little bit, especially when it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, this construction isn't original. The fort actually crumbled pretty much all the way to the ground and was rebuilt in 1967 based on some drawings that they found in an old publication from a soldier, a Texan soldier, who was actually a draftsman and had created a drawing of the fort. At the time it was called Fort Defiance, and sent that back home to his mother shortly before he was captured by Mexican forces and executed. Charming story, but it did at least preserve the details of what the Presidio looked like in 1836. So I don't remember this being here 20 years ago, but it looks like they've got this set up for a blacksmithing demonstration, and they do living history events here. So yeah, I bet this is set up to demonstrate what a 19th century blacksmithing operation would look like. And I think that's called a bellows, and the anvil kind of give it away.
Did we run into any ghosts? Maybe. We definitely got the banging again, and there was no one there to bang on the door and no wind or anything like that, but the ghosts didn't bother us, so we didn't bother them. Be sure to come back next week for part 2, Beer and Battlegrounds. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe.